I want to frame this by talking about it as really for us, this was an important step toward making SLO assessment a meaningful tool to improve teaching and learning. So we'll just jump in here, but before we do that, I'll let my other team members, Christy and Jenny, introduce themselves. My name is Vernon Martin. I'm Department Chair of Philosophy and Humanities at Sierra College, and I co-chair our Educational Effectiveness Committee, which is a standing committee of the Academic Senate. And while we don't have SLO coordinators per se, that would probably be sort of one of our roles in the Educational Effectiveness Committee. Christy and I are also involved in other groups on campus, but for the purposes of this talk, that's sort of our perspective. That's where we'll be coming from. So I'll let Christy and Jenny introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Christy Caro, and I'm the Department Chair of Business at Sierra College. I do co-chair the Educational Effectiveness Committee, and I also am serving on the Presidential Equity Task Force, which has an interest as well in assessment and its uses and practices in making things more transparent.
Hi, my name is Jenny Allen, and I am the Senior Research Analyst at Sierra College. I'm fairly new to this position. I started in January, and one of the first things I was asked to do is to try to get the Canvas data out and into a more useful reporting visualization. So I used Power BI for that.
Okay. So as you are all familiar with, the way that outcomes were introduced to the community college system, the California community college system, was really through external mandates. And as we're probably still all experiencing the drawback to that approach, what we've been trying to do at Sierra College is always frame SLO assessment in terms of it being a tool to improve teaching and learning. And so that's really at the heart of how we frame all of our discussions. Our view is that if you make outcome assessment a meaningful tool for faculty to use and a strategic tool, and you're able to help them see how it is a very powerful tool as opposed to looking at success rates or retention rates, sort of those broad views. Outcome assessment is a very powerful tool because it gives you a strategic vision of where in your course you could make improvements that may actually result in improved student learning. So we always try to frame it in that way. And our feeling is that if you make it meaningful, you're going to antecedently, or you will consequently meet those external mandates. Now, we also have other sorts of ways that SLO assessment has been connected to different sorts of initiatives, and Guided Pathways has that initiative as the fourth pillar. But it still seems that it's very difficult to get faculty to really understand the importance of SLO assessment in terms of their efforts to improve teaching and learning. And so we felt that Canvas has this built-in function, but as we'll demonstrate, the functionality of it in terms of giving you useful data that's visualized in the way where you could actually see student learning results and make improvements is pretty limited. So Christy and I started working with Jenny over the summer, and her question to us was, well, what would it look like? What would be really helpful for you as faculty to see in terms of your SLO assessment results that would help you do this? And so we started from that point and then just started to build this out. So with that, I'm just going to walk you through the first step of our presentation, which is just showing you the basic tool, the parts of the functionality of Canvas outcomes and where it goes. And from that point, then we're going to take a leap over to the visualization that Jenny has created using Power BI. So you're looking at just a front page of one of my courses, Philosophy 4 course. It's a critical thinking course. And here's the outcomes tab over here in the course menu tab. And this is where you can populate your student learning outcomes. We may want to come back to this in a little bit because this happens to be a particular area that needs to be uniform in a way that's going to make the use of the spreadsheet file, the CSV file, in a workable form. So you've got these, and these can be added at the course level. Right, so this is an important setup. There's different calculation methods, but I don't want to get hung up on this too much. Then your faculty will align those outcomes. Now that I'm in such a giant view, I'm going to pull back a little bit. Let me just get rid of this for now. Here's my assignment. I have my learning goal here, which is more of a unit learning goal. And then here's my rubric, and here's the aligned outcome to that rubric. So here I'm able to use the rubric, which is an articulation of the outcome in performance. And then I align the associated course outcome to that. Now, once you use this and you've got Learning Mastery Gradebook enabled, so that's a course setting that you would have to enable, Learning Mastery Gradebook. And so you're able to go to grades and you're able to look at the view of those, of the assessment results. So wherever you've aligned those outcomes, you're able to look at the aggregated results for this. So this is as good as it gets for Canvas in terms of data visualization of outcome achievement. All right, so this outcome was aligned to a couple of different assignments, and this is where we're at with that. Now, what this, you can sort of see the limitations of this. It gives me kind of a broad view of things, and then I can look at individual students. But it doesn't really give me much more visualization options. But fortunately over here, the export report will export this as a CSV file. And then if you have a wonderful research analyst, such as Jenny Allen from our school, you can start to create some really nice visualizations of this. So this is the visualization that Jenny has put together. She can walk you through the magic if you want to know that aspect. But to me, this is the most powerful visualization for me that I'm able to see. You'll notice in Canvas in this previous screens, I'm not able to look at previous assessments. So I'm not really able to look at closing the loop. I'm not able to look at where I've assessed, looked and seen those results. I've made changes and then I've reassessed and to see if those results have had any effect. But here I can. And the way that Jenny has set this up, this is a prototype. So there's a fair amount of data, but it's just a couple of faculty here. So
Vernon, I'm sorry, may I please just one point of clarification here. This is a completely different product. This is not Canvas anymore, right? That we are looking at.
That's right. So you're looking at the Power BI visualization of the report that gets exported out of the Learning Mastery Gradebook.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that was the sort of part I breezed over where Jenny has to do a significant amount of work to get it into a form that then she can use Power BI to create these visualizations, right? But look at how nice this is, right? I can since I've been using the Canvas outcome function to assess for quite a while, I'm able to go back and see. So this pie chart here corresponds to the different levels of outcome achievement that these are established by the college. So this was approved through the academic senate that we were going to categorize outcome achievement in 3 categories: mastery, proficient, and unsatisfactory. And this is really important for gathering data. So you have these common categories across the campus. So the green's mastery, the yellow is proficient, and the orange is unsatisfactory. So I'm able to look longitudinally at outcome achievement for this particular course, which is the course you looked at, the critical thinking course, and outcome number 1 here. So I'm able to see, right, to me, orange is bad, right? So the smaller the orange section, the better. And I'm able to see some significant changes that have occurred over time. And then things have sort of leveled out here somewhat. So I'm able to look at different outcomes for the same course. I'm able to look at other courses. So this is another course. This is an intro course. I'm able to separate that out by those outcomes. And then I can sort of go back to the broad view of just the philosophy courses that have been gathered data from. And because this is coming out of Canvas, which is connected to our student SIS system, which is the, we use Banner, we're able to also pull with it the student demographics. So we have race and ethnicity, we've got age, we've got gender. And now we're able to look at outcome achievement by these different categories. Again, still using the same outcome achievement performance ratings, but now we're starting to be able to get a better look at not just sort of overall outcome achievement, but now disaggregated by student populations that might be of value to you in your school. I'm not, oh, I think I need to go to.
Yeah, Vernon, that's still under development, that page, but the idea was to be able to look at demographics over time, but it's still under development.
Right. So this is able to give me some, a look at my outcome assessment results for fall of 18. And again, I think we're still, Jenny, is this still dependent upon the previous screen where if I selected all or if I select a particular course?
Yeah, so the filters on the courses follow through to each page. And you can see that at the top. It'll kind of remind you it's philosophy courses and multiple SLOs. It's not just one of the student learning outcomes.
So I could drill down over here to, let's say, philosophy 4, and then look at outcome achievement rates here. So to me, this is as a faculty member, not just as co-chair of Educational Effectiveness Committee, this is really a powerful tool for me. Oftentimes data comes in ways that are really difficult to make sense of, to know what it means. But then there's other times where you're actually seeing significant trends. You're able to track that. And that's exactly what we want when it comes to outcome assessment, right? We want to be able to look at when we make improvements based upon assessment results and then see if those stuck. And so what's also really nice about this, I'll get a more dynamic one. There we go. I'm able to hover over these different boxes and see how many students we're actually talking about, right? Because this is percentage, which is important, but it's one particular view. So to me, this is really, now you've made outcome assessment a really powerful tool where I can really visualize the changes that I've made, the closing the loop, and then see where to go from there, and then what's happening. And so I can sort of track this as well as we, as summer's always a fairly anomalous term, but you're able to sort of look at the trajectory of the different sorts of outcome achievement rates. And then you can look at, in aggregate, like all the outcomes for a particular course, and sort of see, since this is just one instructor, you can sort of just see the trends here. And this is something that we've really never been able to do. And we've been struggling to get faculty to participate in outcome assessment since, gosh, I think, like most of us, we were sanctioned for outcome assessments back in, I think it was 2008, and then again in 2013. And then I think this is sort of something that's been missing from the ability of faculty to see outcome assessment as really a meaningful tool to improve teaching and learning. And so I'm able to go back now as an instructor, go back if I wanted to, if I wasn't happy with outcome achievement rates, I'm able to go back now to those learning units, right? I know that this outcome is aligned to learning unit 4. And so I'm able to make strategic improvements based upon the data that I can now see. Christy, did you want to add anything or on the business side of SLOs?
No, I wanted you to drill into the disaggregating data though, because in the chat, there's a lot of conversations about how this could be used at the program level and across, departments and divisions for program review.
Okay. This page?
Yeah. So in terms of taking a look at, across program, this is actually a really good tool for individual instructors to know how to improve teaching and learning. But you really could elevate the conversation in your department planning meetings by using this tool and having people, talk about what could be done across a program. It could be used in program review, right? It could be used in all kinds of all kinds of helpful ways. And, serving on the equity task force, so many people come to the meetings and say, well, what does it mean to equitize the classroom or to equitize instruction? And, I'm sure everyone in this group knows, equitable assessment means that it's transparent. It means that learning outcome data is not only collected, it's reported and it's shared. And so by institutionalizing this practice and using something like a tool like Canvas Outcomes, this is an excellent way to visualize not only how well students are achieving the expectations, but who is achieving the assessment expectations. And then, like Vernon just mentioned, being able to go back in and take a look at a particular unit and make those modifications, that really is what equitable assessment is. So the ability to respond to this information is what we believe is an equitable practice. And this is kind of where we want to start with, right? Because whenever you take this to the big, larger group, everyone gets worried and fearful. So we want to start here. Let's start at the individual course level and have faculty, buy in that way. And that's really what the definition from Estelle Bensamon out of Q, she defines as what is equity-mindedness, right? Equity-mindedness is that willingness to take responsibility and reassess practices by examining patterns of inequity in student outcomes. And so that, I think that's a much better way to approach this than to just jump right into bring this into the programs where then you have people, especially part-timers, feeling vulnerable, right? So you have people start looking at this at an individual level. So Canvas outcomes is really the tool that can change, our practice.
Yeah, I was just curious, for future versions, I know Jenny was mentioning that there's some dashboards on the way and still under development. Are you looking to include disproportionate impact analysis in there so that it could be really clear for faculty where there are areas of concern and potential improvement?
Yeah, so right now this is like a proof of concept. So it's in the early stages because it was very hard to get the Canvas data to this point. So if any of you have tried to get the Canvas data, this is semi-automated, but I'm trying to look at a more automated way to get this going forward. And the other thing with disproportionate impact is when you start drilling down to the section level, the number of students in each of those disaggregated categories is very low. So it's really hard to do meaningful disproportionate impact analysis when there's only 2 students in that category. So we're just trying to first make sure we're getting the data out and it's accurate. And then, yeah, we will have those discussions, but it's probably not going to be as meaningful unless it's at a higher level with more students.
And the next question that I see here is from Susan Spalding. If you could please elaborate on this. I could read it, but I think it's better if you were to speak on it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Just curious about reliability of the data. So if instructors in, say, the first semester, first quarter are evaluating, say, communication skills, and that communication is a program theme or a program outcome, they might rate them higher in the first quarter with some expectations, but the instructor's expectations are growing over time. And so later, if students are making the same mistakes, the grade would be lower. Their score would be lower.
So one of the ways we account for that is back in that original setting, you'll notice that the calculation method we selected was the highest. So wherever we assess that outcome, Canvas is going to record the highest rating or the highest achievement level of that outcome. So to me, this handles the question of, can you use this for formative and summative assessments? And I'd say yes, because I mean, it can get a little squirrely there, but if the instructor knows how this calculation method is set up, then they will really try to will strategically place those formative assessments and then make sure to have this calculation method set up the way they want.
Can you elaborate on highest score? What is that? It's choosing the highest score from the semester? No, wait, or the course, the entire course?
So this would be the, so if I've got outcome number 2 aligned to 3 different assignments in the course, it's going to take the highest performance of that outcome. That's how it's going to calculate the achievement.
I actually had a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first of which is for setting this up within Canvas, who does the actual setting up of the outcomes? Is it from like a central Canvas administrator? Or is it the individual faculty teaching each section? Kind of like how is that set up? And kind of related to that, how would you aggregate data across multiple sections?
I'll handle the first question. So you can add outcomes to Canvas from at the account level, so the course instructor level. There's some ways to share outcomes through the copy function. So I could, if I wanted to reduce my workload, I could add my outcomes to Philosophy 4, and then I could simply copy these over to another section of Philosophy 4. But these can also be batch uploaded at the administrative level. And I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of this since this is some pretty new stuff, but we've heard from other colleges and universities across the country that recommend setting up outcomes at the administrative level. And what that would require is to have all of the official curriculum outcomes assigned to a course, and then have all sections of that course uploaded through a CSV file. I guess that's possible through Canvas. We ourselves at Sierra College have not done that yet. I know that some schools have tried that. I think Butte, Dave Stevens up at Butte, I think has been working with that, and I'm not sure what his, how successful that has been, but there seems to be some type of significance in how you are able to pull the data from that. And maybe Jenny can talk about that since it's related to the next question.
Yeah, so right now, all of the learning outcomes are set at the course level, and it's primarily Christy and Vernon setting up the learning outcomes for their courses. And like he said, they could be shared for other courses, but ideally how it would be set up is so at a program level or department level, all the similar courses are using similar outcomes, so you can aggregate the data. And then not only that, there's the institution learning outcomes. Like you could have the whole hierarchy in here. And if one central person or a couple people could enter that data or load that data, and then faculty would only have to be trained on how to assign that to their different assignments and rubrics, and making the impact and the upfront work as minimal as possible, I think would help. We're not quite there yet, but that's ideally how it would work, because right now how I get the data is originally they would ask each instructor who is doing student learning outcomes in Canvas and interested in more visualization or reporting to export their own data, save it somewhere on SharePoint, and then someone would grab all those Excel spreadsheets and load them into a SQL Server database and then do the analysis. So when I came along, I tried to figure out a better way so people didn't have to export data and then it had to be imported. I quickly learned Canvas is not very supportive of anything related to the data coming out. They give you options to get the data out and some very basic documentation, but they don't really offer any support. So I can tell you what I did is Canvas has an area, I think it's called data exports. And someone who has administration level access to Canvas can go to these data exports, and every night they export all of our data into files. And they say, here, we've provided you all your data. Go ahead and use it as you wish, but don't ask us any questions because we're not supporting this. So basically they do have a little bit of options on their website to help you take this data. There's also something called GitHub, which is an open source. It's where programmers go to share what they've done. So what I did is I took this exported data, I watched a video on the Canvas support website where they talked about using this tool called Canvas Data CLI tool. And I was able to go get our data in an automated way for all instructors in all sections and copy that over to our server. So it's semi-automated. Then I take those files and load them into a SQL Server database as tables. And then I wrote a script in SQL to join all those tables, which just to get what you saw was 17 different tables. And I joined it and I got the data, and I worked with Christy and Vernon at the section level to validate that the data I was bringing over matched what they saw on Canvas. And so that's where we're at today. It's not ideal because it is still pretty manual. We only update this information at the end of each term, and it takes me about 2 hours. Now, if Canvas changes their data structure or file structure, I have to modify that each time. So it is not ideal. So I thought I saw someone ask, is there a better way to do this? Well, I'm trying to figure it out. So number one, the best way would be is if you can be a hosted site. And this is where you pay an extra fee and you have Canvas send your data to an Amazon Redshift database, And then your data is already in a database, and they have a lot of other pre-configured reports that you can just access. Plus, you could use Power BI to connect to that database. That is additional charge. It's based on FTEs and the number of courses you have in Canvas. And when I got a quote for Sierra, it was $32,000.
That's
So
a yearly subscription, I'm sorry?
Yes, $32,000 a year. So we did not do that. There's also a lot of more automated ways on GitHub where you can walk through a script and it will be more automated. But one of the first steps of that script was to authorize some command shell. I don't really fully understand it, but our DBA would not allow us to run that because they said it is a security risk. So we weren't able to do that more automated way. The next best way is the API, which stands for Application Programming Interface. And basically it's just different ways you can call to direct endpoints into Canvas and get the data you want automated. I'm currently exploring using that because I think that is the way to go. I'm not a programmer, so I initially, when I tried to do it, I either didn't have the tools or the permissions I needed to get it done. So I went with this data export option just as a proof of concept that this would work. So we are exploring the APIs next.
Do instructors teaching the same course have to agree on the SLO and assessment, or can it be individualized across courses? So it looks like, do instructors teaching the same course have to agree on the SLO and assessment? So
Well,
does it have to be uniform?
My understanding is that SLOs are part of the official course curriculum, so they are not, they are what they are.
Right.
You have to have the same outcomes for the course. But yeah, of course, where faculty decide to sort of align outcomes to rubrics and assignments, that's completely up to them.
Right.
What we are seeing though is, I know in my department, we've been really trying to figure out a way to both use the assessment process as a way to reflect upon what do we expect students to be doing when we say they've achieved an outcome? What does that look like? And to develop some consistency. So what we have tried to do is try to come up with an agreed upon set of criteria for certain outcomes. So for the essay writing outcome, we've come up with a common set of criteria. Now we may have other criteria in a rubric that maybe we want as individual instructors, but those common criteria will be the way that we determine outcome achievement for that for assessment purposes. So
and
that
we did this, York, we did the same thing in the business department. So we have different assessments that we use. However, we created a common rubric. And then we calibrated the rubric at one of our planning and assessment days where each individual instructor brought in their assessments, and we reviewed them to see how the rubric actually held up. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, our philosophy faculty are a little bit more difficult to get together, together. So the best we could do is come up with common criteria in a rubric, and so far that's working pretty good. So there's different ways to approach this. Frankly, I just from a sort of a in my experience, one thing that has been probably one of the most valuable results of really taking assessment seriously is when you come back and you're looking at outcome achievement data. It's not the data, it's the conversations between faculty and really trying to get a consensus on what it means to achieve these outcomes. One of the things that came out of those conversations is that some instructors really had expectations that were not expectations for other instructors in terms of skillful writing. the use of transitional phrases between main points. These are really important conversations to have, and hopefully your college supports your faculty in terms of time and providing space for those conversations to happen. But when those conversations happen, it really allows faculty to come together and start to really work on those things and really try to come to some sort of understanding of, well, is it really fair to assess students on a skill that you aren't teaching in the course? To assess students on a skill that's really not part of the curriculum of the course. And so getting faculty together on what it means operationally to achieve these outcomes in terms of student artifacts is a great opportunity. So it's not just the data and visualizing the data, but the sort of adjacent conversations that emerge out of these.
Fantastic. Again, you're really confirming the discussions that really need to be happening truly outside of Canvas, outside of any technology, to be honest, as far as what it is that what really student learning means, and once we figure it out, then that's a challenge for us to lay it all out so that makes sense, and then we can start talking about technology.
Related in a way, you know, when you're able to see data in a way that is visualized and that it kind of makes sense, and you're able to see it over the span of time based on different things that you've done for improvement and change, you know, that draws faculty in. There's something about data visualization that is able to draw faculty into this process that up to this point, it really hasn't been part of it, right? We've been looking at, you know, Word documents where instructors analyze assessment results, and it's really hard to see that and make sense of it. I mean, you can, but I think once you start to see things over time, I think faculty sort of, you know, lift their heads up and start paying attention a little bit more. And then once that happens, then you can have all these other wonderful conversations that are absolutely essential to the whole assessment process.
Right, great. Thank you. Thank you again for those comments. Thad, did you have all your questions answered? Thad Montero, if you would like to speak.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much.
Great. I'm happy to hear that. And then there was, oh gosh, there's really quite a bit of activity. It's difficult for me to listen and monitor the chat at the same time and try to connect the two. Let me see here. Dawn from Grossmont College, if you don't mind, would you please elaborate on your question or comment? You're the
I'd be
campus
happy
administrator.
to.
Please, thank you so much.
Felicia is also here, and she's been more the guiding force working with the faculty. So I've been working with her. And what we have been doing is, and Felicia can help me, I believe the departments decide on their SLOs. And so they all have the same. And then the department contacts Felicia and I and sends them to us, and I'm uploading them at the department level. So that way it saves work and effort on each faculty member. They don't have to put them into their individual course. They can just go and identify them and pull them from the area. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're just at the beginning stages of people adopting it, but the more I do it, the easier it is. And I'm liking the process, so.
Great, thank you very much. Then there is a question from Paul. Are you allowing the students to see the outcome rating in the course? So they see the assignment grade and then the outcome score.
So my allowance.
Do students have access to it?
To the rubric?
Yeah.
Yes, rubrics are always available.
Oh, I think it's the results in Power BI.
No, we're currently, no, they can look at the outcome achievement if through the gradebook. So students can see that, but it is a setting. I maybe should have shown this earlier. So in your course settings for instructors to be able to use the Learning Mastery Gradebook, it has to be turned on here. And then if you want students to see that same sort of the assessment results for themselves, you have to turn on the Student Learning Mastery Gradebook. Right, so this is just once you've turned these on at the instructor level and at the student level, then it allows you to see not just the regular grade book, but the learning mastery grade book, which is here. So they would see their individual results.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's about it. Felicia, would you like to comment on any of this?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we love using Canvas for outcomes, and we're just getting started. But the tricky part, as was discussed earlier already, is just getting it, at that program level so you can make that data really useful. And I think
That's right.
it's kind of it's been kind of a back burner project that's been slowly evolving. But yeah, I think it's a great tool. And for me, the part that I need to bring in now is the Power BI part.
Great, super. Yes,
I
go
would
ahead.
like to add something, if that's okay. So there's another level of complexity we didn't go into yet, and I'm hoping people who have used the API have resolved this. But as Vernon mentioned, when you set up your learning outcomes, you are able to choose which calculation method you would like to use. So if you have multiple assignments assessing the same learning outcome, right there, you have a choice of like 4 different calculation methods. Do you want to pick the highest score out of all of those? Do you want to pick the most recent? And there you go. So you see the different options. So when you access the Learning Mastery Gradebook in Canvas, it automatically looks for this calculation method and rolls up the scores for the student based on what you chose here. When we try to get the data out of Canvas, that isn't stored. This score for each student isn't stored anywhere. And so I reached out to Canvas support and said, where is that score stored? And they couldn't tell me. And so I thought, oh, well, many programs, even though you're launching the gradebook, maybe it calculates that score on the fly. It's just part of the programming. It's not physically stored. Well, I said, okay, so instead of me having to reinvent the wheel and recalculate all of those different ways, can you share the logic behind it? And they could not help me. So all of the dashboard data that we did is based on the highest calculation method. So I actually go and sum up all the student scores for each student learning outcome, and I pick the highest score. So the next step for us is if our instructors are going to be using different calculation methods, I would have to program that in. I was hoping the API would actually connect so you get to that stored score and you don't have to do the calculations. And then that leads to the other question is, if you're going to be aggregating the data, shouldn't you be using the same calculation method?
All right, makes sense. Anyone else at this point who would like to speak? Any questions, comments? All right, Vernon.
Yeah, we're all good. We're just happy to share where we're at in the process. We're very excited. I think we still have a lot of ideas here of disaggregating,
of course,
different populations, but we're really excited for our faculty to see this and to start being curious enough and interested enough to start using the Canvas outcomes. Since everyone's in Canvas, start using Canvas outcomes to do assessment as well, because it does add that level of disaggregation that currently our hard copy process, our electronic form process of recording outcome results does not have. And so this is really bringing together a lot of different important constituent groups across campus that all have the same sort of goals, right? We want curriculum, program review, assessment to be happening, all with equity considerations, all with equity part of the process. And we see this as a really powerful way to bring everyone together for all of those steps.
So I noticed that the SLOs are marked just like that. SLO number 1, number 2, number 3. I think that it would be a really powerful tool, especially for our boardrooms and meetings on accountability. If there were to be, well, let's just say a question that's going to be answered, how our students are doing on critical thinking, or how do our students know how to solve problems in small groups, or something like this. Like there's this broader umbrella of an outcome, and here comes the visualization. I think that would be very, very impressive to a lot of people.
So you mean like institutional or program level outcomes?
Yeah, program or institution, right? I think that, again, we can probably have a separate discussion on the topic. It seems like, if students are not learning APA style, then that's probably English department issue, right? So it's difficult to specifically talk about this, but at the program or institutional level, how well our students are using technology, or are they really engaged in social issues, things of that nature. I think that alignment, if you could comment on this, would probably be very, very powerful for us to share with at our local campuses.
Well, I kind of have mixed feelings about that myself. I feel like when you start moving towards that broader array, right, program and then institution, maybe it's just because I'm faculty, right, and I'm always thinking about things in terms of what I can do in my classes to help students learn more effectively, to improve success rates, to increase retention rates, to make sure I'm not losing students at any sticking points in the course or in my philosophy or humanities program. So I feel like, to me, when I start moving up into these more higher levels, those are important considerations, but, and it's certainly in terms of deployment of resources and planning. But I'm always pulled back to the classroom because that's where I can make changes. So, I'm glad to be part of those higher level, more abstract level, more general level conversations. But I think it's always going to flow back to individual departments, individual courses, individual instructors, and really sort of having them understand the power of outcome assessment as that particular tool, that no matter what we're trying to achieve in terms of institutional outcomes, we want to know what that means for us in our individual courses. I'm particularly interested in, for our own college, just kind of pivoting a little bit, I'm really interested in our college's effort to start to look at general education outcomes, because I think that will also foster some really interesting conversations about what are we expecting these courses from, what is the learning that is being expected from students in these courses that are meeting these general education requirements. And so having that conversation flow from that level back to those individual departments and those individual courses is great stuff. That's really, that's all I really have to say about that. I mean, I'm sure there's other people who have other perspectives, but as a faculty member, I just bring it back home. So
no, this is a very, very good, really summary and good, I guess, way to approach this discussion, because again, as you know, we tend to spend, I think you indicated that already, more time on student success rates as understood by course completion and transition rates, transfer rates, and persistence, attendance, things of that nature. When it comes to student learning, I think that's just an excellent point that you're bringing up of general education. I think that's something that everybody would be really interested in knowing. how our college, how our students are doing in general education outcomes. That you're absolutely right. That would be I imagine a point of really good discussions. So thank you for that summary. Felicia, again, if you would like to, please go ahead and comment on this. I see you're chatting again.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was just responding to a question that someone asked in the chat.
Okay, please.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning that we're using our TrackDot, the Nuventive TrackDot for the majority, for outcomes and for planning. That's more long-term. This is at Grossmont College, sorry.
Mhm.
But what we've started to do just recently is just to slowly introduce using Canvas. And my pitch is really about the time savings on Canvas, because there's all this manual aggregation of data from lots of different faculties that department chairs are having to do. And that just seems like a ridiculous waste of time. So in Canvas, you can just get all that data. And then we've just been, as I mentioned before, Dawn wonderfully has been helping, and we've just been kind of working together to learn how to export that data and what it looks like. It's been a real back burner project, so we're real kind of slow moving on it, but really excited about it.
There's a couple of really important points that I'm sure you've all sort of grasped. Is like on the front end, there's a significant amount of work, right? The whole outcomes part, and then getting faculty acquainted. Well, currently Canvas does not allow you to align outcomes without a rubric. And so that's a problem. Canvas is aware of this. They have not given us a timeline, but they promise us that in the near future, distant future, somewhere in the middle, that you will be able to align an outcome to not just an assignment, but to actual content as well, to sort of help you with the course design aspect. So the requirement of having a rubric won't necessarily be a requirement to align an outcome to an assignment in the future. I have mixed feelings about that. I'd like to see, and Canvas is aware of this, I would like to see rubrics having a dynamic relationship with the outcome achievement levels. So for instance, if I have a rubric that has a score of a total of 20, and I see that all of those criteria are the operational definition of that outcome, that I would want to be able to say, hey, Canvas, when I use this rubric and a student gets 18, 19, or 20, I want that to be mastery. If a student gets 16, 17, or 15, 16, and 17, I want that to be proficient, and so on. I'd love for Canvas to be able to do that. So they're aware of this. They understand that their outcomes, nothing significant has really been done with outcomes in quite a while. They separated out the rubric function from the outcome function, but other than that, they not. So that front end stuff is really significant to be able to get faculty to want to dive into this. And then, as Jenny has been mentioning, the back end of this is even more complicated than that, right? So you really have to have some support in making this happen in several different ways.
Thank you so much.
You.
I know that Vernon said that he typically deals at the course level, but I thought somebody said that as long as an administrator did it a priori, that you actually could have across courses these course outcomes linked to program and institutional outcomes. Did I mishear that, or is that a feature that's possible?
Right. So there's a way to batch upload whatever outcomes you want, right? So course level, program level, institutional, you can have all that batch uploaded. And your Canvas rep, it follows the regular batch upload process that all Canvas administrators know about, but it has to be of a particular form. So it has to follow a particular form for it to work. And your Canvas rep should be able to know how to do that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, that will reduce a lot of work on the front end.
So I would like to address the question that Karen is asking, and Karen, you're certainly welcome to elaborate on this. But it seems like the challenge is to really integrate around Canvas 1, 2, 3 other databases or other programs that would actually make it shine. And you've shown us Microsoft Power BI. Then there is the Nuventive, the Illumin, depending on the college and so forth. Karen, if you could please elaborate on this, because I'm really anxious to hear how colleges deal with this.
Yeah, it seems like the challenge is in terms of the amount of energy put into manually extracting this and having to format it. The work that Jenny's done is amazing, I think, but it seems like in terms of scaling up, it could be really challenging. And I think a lot of program planning platforms, just our initial foray, we're starting to look at some, is that they're well aware that they need to help automate the processes. And especially with Canvas being adopted in California statewide, there's tremendous incentive for them to figure out that integration. I know that Nuventive right now, currently their improvement platform, it's the better platform than the old TrackDat, which was renamed Improve, and that's why it confuses people. Their improvement platform integrates directly with Canvas, and so can do some of that formatting of some of those data visualizations. What I can't remember is the specific details of how much and across all the different sections and how that would need to be formatted. But that way, when you're reporting out on program review, you have your SLO data readily available. And also Illumin is directly integrated with Canvas. Again, you'd want to check out more of the details, but it seems a lot of the program planning platforms are moving in that direction.
Yeah, this need has been there for a while. And I think for some reason, maybe just the fact that we're all on Canvas now and that Canvas is the statewide LMS, maybe that has provided more incentive.